not how the game will look. The game will come in many forms because we have an API that connect and an SDK that connect to Unity. So the idea is to kind of go cross-platform someday and make our way to Nintendo if we're lucky. So with the ILM system, it will look at the traits of the Drac and see what are the traits that exist, which of those are in defensive positions on the body, and which of those are like an attack position or attack trait. And we'll dole those out and attaches dynamically individual records to each of these Dracs in each of their layers. So every single Drax, although it may have a similar trait, it is still unique and can be customized per Drac. So we have this really great system on the back end that's all real time, that is pub sub system, that has an audit system for all of these interactions. All these changes are completely backed up, and we'll be going to data layer as well. So this system is really cool because you can pick, well, I want to use this trait, and this trait when I'm, say, going into battle. And this is, again, just kind of low level examples. So you can be able to, sort what you want to do in what order. And so this allows us to kind of fire these action sequences and the ILM records and all of the dynamic data tied to them off to the server, get the response back, and then we do our minting and all of our drops and everything that we need to do once something is either created or destroyed, or the state has changed. Speaking of that, we did get our Wallet Connect fixed thanks to Acefail. So Wallet Connect is fully functional now, and we're kind of dealing with all that Chia Wallet Connect stuff. So I mentioned that because that has a lot to do with like entering state, exiting state on chain, using things like we're watching for Bram to deal with refereeing and reconciliation of errors and things like that. So there's still a lot more work to do here on Battle, but that's, it's coming along to a point where we're going to be able to build mini games and tie it into our own API and kind of affect things that way. So that's really cool. Now, piece de resistance, at least for me, and I'm going to wrap up my demo here as quick as I can, but still showing you guys as much as I can. So the map has undergone massive improvements since we last saw it. Now we've moved away from the leaflet map engine, and we're using the Mapbox map engine, which gives us a performance level that is far superior to what we were getting on leaflet. So I've gone in and done a lot of nice polish as far as being able to navigate the world and be able to see, these are random assets. You have to understand, I'm doing a bit of testing, so I know there's rocks and grass in the middle of the ocean, but this is just for demo purposes. Just like you may see things like my translations aren't completely up to snuff, but Drac is super multilingual, so, it just takes some time sometimes for me to go back and get those. But so with Mapbox, we have this really nice performant map now. We've got a lot of really great, just customizable views, different way to look at things. And Aleph, this is where it all might start to make sense a little more, is that what we've done is fused the real world of the globe of Earth and fused our game map within it. Now, this is the 2D, two-dimensional one, but we will be dropping in a 3D model of this because I've already rebuilt this whole illustration in Unity after taking some lessons from Greg over at Nifter, Clyde and Greg, who's a 10-year Unity guy. So he got me up to snuff, and, we've been able to build things with it. As an example, if I go into Drac's house, we're going to jump into the Isle of Seven Cities 3D view that I built very roughly. I'm not a 3D artist, but this gives us that immersion where now we can have people in here doing games, different hunts, different methods of engagement, revenue streams, NFT stuff, promotion, and so on. So, I jump in, I jump back out. I'm back in Drac. I can move around, guys, now there's a new heads-up display. This wasn't here last time, so now I can quickly navigate around and find different objects on the map. I can go in and say, well, take me to a specific Drac, and I'm going to fly over and find this Drac. I can pull up its card. I can flip it around. I can read its details. I can jump to its, whoop, there's a bug. I can jump, I'll show you that in a sec. I can jump to its details page. I can jump to where it is on the map. This actually has to change since we changed this up. See the full-size image, of course. And then I can go and just jump quickly to its bloodline as well, travel back to the map. I'm in, I'm out. I'm doing my research. I'm looking at my bloodlines and figuring out what I want to breed until I, want to do a battle or engage in some sort of quest, which you'll see these other markers. They're kind of random for now. But we built an entire, or are building, and in the process of building an entire quest and game system. So depending on your players, depending on the geospatial proximity of your assets to others of your assets to other things, we know that we have this really cool dynamic reactive game based around your NFTs. Well, in all that, in the past 2 weeks, we kind of, maybe I should say I kind of, I think I've only told this one. We've introduced human characters. I am introducing human characters, and I've reached out to Seth Jenkins, some prominent artists, to see if we can get some help on bringing something of significance in the art world, maybe something OG from the Chia crowd, so that we can keep with our ethos of Drac being the presentation layer of all this really great tech that's sitting out there that nobody can really apply. And we're trying to stitch this quilt and this tapestry of all these great tools. So bringing somebody in like that would be really nice. But the point of the humans now is that it gives you this, so the way it's set up is I can at present assign up to 5 of my human NFT characters to my profile. So I am acting on their behalf. Dealing with fog of war, dealing with large data sets, dealing with storylines and quests, and how are we going to make certain things visible and not. Having human characters gives me an ability to create perimeters, gives me an ability to modify the story, make conditions, have collision events, things of that nature where I can go a little deeper in engaging and crossing over the real world, the fake kind of fictitious world and all the different events that happen along inside it. So it's hard to explain why, but I've got kind of much like the rest of Drac, trust me, there's a vision here and I see where it's going with the humans. It's going to be really cool. So with that, you can at any point, oh, my wallet just reconnected. Thank you. I can go and, research more about Minerva, the city. And there's an entire write-up here more about Minerva. You can see where its Latin longs are. You can see what the population of it is. This population is fake right now, but it'll be dynamic and updating according to how many holders hold the guild badge. This is where our decentralized autonomous guilds will come into play in our voting. So when you hold a guild badge, you'll have a say for a vote with what happens with the storyline around Minerva, as an example. These can be tied to the human characters as like home cities, giving them extra, abilities and interconnection with all the digital assets and all that kind of stuff. So that view that HUD view is completely new. These global controls, there's also, this is new. So if I just go to New York because it's dense and they always got all the best data. So if I go to downtown New York and I'm thinking, maybe I'm thinking about going hunting for some Dracs in the geospatial game. And this is why we kind of merged the fictitious island with the map and the map box, and why we moved with these tools is because I can get really immersed into this game on many different levels. One of my favorites is that we can also do the 3D buildings with Mapbox, which is really clean, really well done. It's highly performant. But when it gets down to the point where we're doing geocaching, augmented reality, this is a foundation that's going to be really good to work from. And since we have Ionic and the SDKs that we have to work with the progressive web apps, and we've got this really, based back-end real-time system, we're going to really be able to get in and do some really, really cool stuff. Geolocation tracking feature has been included and turned on just for testing and development. So if I turn this on, it's actually it should pop up here and pin me. There we are, all the way up here in New Brunswick, East Coast, Canada. And so as an example, that's where I am. And if I was to say just, I did this for development, if I move this periodically, it's going to go back to where I am. It's going to know where I am. So early stage development there, but the beginnings of the geolocation, geocaching aware stuff, which ties into stuff that Chief and I on the hardware and Dread want to do. Here's another example. This is my golf course that I go golfing at. So I took Spatial IO's template and just called it Drac Drifter and dropped it in to kind of give an idea of just how far we've gotten with jumping in and out of different immersive aspects of it. So here I am in Drac Drifter, and I can go around with my buddies. I'm tired there. I can go out and I can go do a puzzle, try to win an NFT, try to find one, discover one, work through a quest, a puzzle. And so all that to say with the quest and the puzzles, it's a little hard to show here, but there is an entire dialogue system, which I think I'm going to let Brad and Dread talk a little bit more. But the entire dialogue system is a bunch of relational databases that clue into our ILM, our gaming, and all of our data, and give us this really cool way to kind of engage each player dependent on, certain factors of the game and their progression and so on and so forth. So I'll leave that for the boys to talk about. But while I'm here on the back end, I did want to say that we also made strides this week on the L2 caching system. And we talked to Michael Taylor. He loves the idea. He thinks it's very viable. We've already tested it, and it is viable for Drac. What it does is it cuts us down from a 1 to 5 minute delay in latency to the data layer backup system, and cuts us down to about 30 milliseconds. Depending on traffic and server setups and so on, we can go globe to globe on this L2 cache, which keeps our real time up, keeps us directly linked to data layer. There's still more investigation, but that was a really cool thing this week. And then to top it off, the only other major thing that we haven't showed is that we did do the AI system has been implemented. And if I go to our Caddis assets here, you'll see that there's ILM and layers and how we're doing our relations and stuff. But we actually, when we go down to the layer level, what we've done is we've created control net images of all of our traits. So every time a single DRAC is either bred, created, or otherwise, moves its way through our system, control net optimized images are created for the chip 15 metadata so that other metaverses or projects or whoever, or even for our own needs later, we can use ControlNet AI to more accurately convert our digital assets for like an interoperable purpose or something like that. So that's in there. Maps have been updated. Dialogue systems, HUD systems, real-time L2 caches. I don't know. That's my presentation.
Space time.
Oh, space time. Oh, God. So, yeah, I will close with this and I'm going to let the other guys talk. So we have essentially, we're joking that, we've hacked time in Dracatus. And that came, so the latency L2 cache system came as a result of needing to close this gap on this 1 to 5 minute delay or latency and going to data layers. So because we talked to Michael and he said he would do some custom services on datalayer.link for us to help us, due to the size and the scope of our project, he was, and we're helping him. He's a great guy. Anyway, in that, he said we could probably get it down to 1 minute. Well, you guys know me. Everything I'm doing here is real time. And so up to this point, up to you guys coming on board, a few months ago, this is just, for me, it's just like I see it no other way than it needing to be real time. Never really knowing how it was going to happen, but sure enough, symmetry, guys. And so we've had a great development, and now having this whole L2 cache system, it's just, I don't know what else to say about everything. It's just been badass. Anyway, I'm rambling now. It was the time thing. So because of the L2 cache and because of latency gone, we can now with data layer have what we're going to call the WayDRAC machine instead of the Wayback machine. But on this map, you will be able to, I say this very confidently, and knowing that I'm making maybe a bold statement here, you will be able to grab a time scrubber and you will be able to scrub back in time and see the entirety of the game assets that are currently in your view change according to how they were changed. And because everything is going to be done through data layer and crypto and Chia, you can rest assured that all of the data is verifiable and accurate. So you'll be able to scrub back in time, giving us this ability to not only send you on wild goose hunts and fun games and metaverse games and challenges, but we'll actually be able to do an education, which, with DRAC is very important with me and my kids, and very important to teach them this stuff the right way. And I think it's an important thing that we miss sometimes in Chia. You guys have heard me talk about doing kid spaces, teaching developers of tomorrow and so on. And I think doing our game this way and being able to take real world historic locations or, geographical, whatever, for whatever reason, and tie that to not only the lessons of geography, but the lessons of time in our history. And I think it's a really valuable tool that we can put in DRAC that you don't even see in the uber successful Pokemons of the world. Although, they're very successful. I think that we have an ability with DRAC and the way we've done the world and the fictitious, Isle of Seven Cities and the whole story, we could really set a new bar for what it means to have a multi-dimensional utility that like can span everything from a kid all the way up to an adult who's trying to, dollar go up, right? And so you could have the total fucking degen, or you could have this completely sweet, innocent child who's really enamored by the art and the story and the lore, and you could inspire a dev of tomorrow. So that's a cool thing with the time scrubber, is this whole historical element of the game that we can bring in tied to the dialogue system. So last time, I'm done. That was my 2 weeks. That's my demo. Somebody else can take over.
Dred, why don't you explain the concept behind our dynamic dialogue system a little bit, and then we can talk about kind of where we've been going with quest lines and things like that.
Oh yeah, sure. So, recently one thing I've been working on is creating a dynamic dialogue system. Basically, it's just using JSON on the back end and a set of opcodes. And by opcodes, I just mean little short comparator operations that can be done to gate certain dialogue options. So, for instance, let's say you have a quest and you are there's a lake in front of you, and you're like, well, I need to cross the lake. Well, you might have a dialogue option, when talking to the guy by the lake of, well, what can I do across the lake? You might have a ferry, and if you have enough money, it will check that, based on the little requirements set in the JSON for the message. If you have the money, you can just buy the ferry. If you have an ice track, you might have an option to say, okay, well, there's an ice track in my inventory, make an ice bridge across the lake so I can walk across it. And there might just be another one that is a free option that has no requirements whatsoever. It's like, well, I'll just come back later kind of thing. So the idea would be that every interaction could be completely dynamic based on how you're playing and what your loadout is in terms of Drax and items and humans that you have equipped now that we're adding humans. And just kind of allows the game to be, like I said before, a lot more dynamic with really minimal effort on our part.
Yeah, what really makes this dynamic dialogue system interesting is it shantification, right? That's the big word that we've been pushing the last 6 weeks while developing as a team. And so it really makes the user's experience their own. So it's not just a one-way dialogue system, static, where you're getting a one-way response. It's going to be reading where you just came from. Let's say you came back from a battle and you were victorious. It'll be able to read that metadata and be able to translate that into text to really make it one-of-a-kind experience for that user. So even if you're playing back through the game again, you will never get the same experience. This makes it so you're more immersed inside this environment again, and it really feels real. And what really makes this cool is it's also going to change the way like gameplay is done, right? So there's not just going to be like one game cheat that people can go to or having like a playthrough and a walkthrough of the game, because each person's experience is going to be their own. So again, those little like adjectives and descriptive nouns of where you are in that world is really going to immerse you into that experience even further.
Well, and even further, because it's a living world, right? You can't solve the same problem at the same time. There might be with the river example or the lake example, you have to cross. It might say, well, there's an ice track right up the road I can go snag. Well, that's not going to be there if you snag it. So the next person comes by, they might not have that option unless they went out of their way or that was one of their starting, choices. So it really does, force different player choices just based off of what the last guy did even.
Yes, and as we've been talking, in certain quests, reading these certain things, if you didn't complete the quest in the last one to 100% completion, or you weren't able to answer the series of questions of the riddle of the lore, maybe again you don't get that benefit in that next quest. So maybe there's going to be something negative that happens. So there's a causation in reaction, like he said, causing a real living environment as close as you can get. So again, it really increases that immersive environment for each user independently.
Something worth noting that just jumped to my mind about all of what you're saying, something that should be noted is all of this interaction, all of it comes down to some algorithms in the back that adjust your stats per character. Obviously, it's the stack go up, stack go down. You could lose it, you could whatever. But it's worth noting that all of that breaks down to an algorithm that gives each Drac a rank score. So depending on what you do with your Drac, whether you're battling it, whether you're adventuring with it, whatever the case, your apathy can come down, your compatibility can go up, things like that. But it ultimately boils down to how we score them as a rank score. And so in the end of all this, and back just to tie it to that royalty sharing, all of this interaction affects your score. That score affects the percentage of the secondary royalty share you get. So your decisions that you make throughout the game can actually affect the passive income portion of it, whether you're doing that or not, or whatever the case. So it's really neat to see the systems that you guys are talking about and how they all boil down to these little interlocking features and systems. So anyway, the passive royalties is tied to all of this, is what I wanted to say.
Yeah, and that really ties into our ethos too, of just doing everything as KISS as possible, right? Like just simplified mechanics that can be simplified mechanics that can exhibit emergent behavior when combined. That that's one of the most powerful tools you have as a game designer, in my opinion. And I've learned that a lot through just some of the research I've been doing recently and some of the TDC talks I've seen.
Yeah, it's been really great. We recently all as a team watched some videos from a prominent game developer around horizontal slicing, vertical slicing, beautiful corners. And I think like what you're saying, the ease of how we can plug our tools together because we put so much time into the foundation. And now when we learn these new things and we go, oh, we could have done this better. It's not a giant pivot. It's how do we tweak what we're already doing well and match up to these industry standards and trends that, that have proven records because we don't want to just be winging it, right? So there's a lot of validation in this week's sprint, guys. I don't know what else to say other than like give yourselves a pat on the back because I've seen a lot of teams in Web3. I've worked with a lot of teams. Probably maybe, Alep's watching and definitely not on his caliber, his scale, but I've done a lot of cool shit in my day and worked with a lot of people. And this team is doing everything autonomously in an accountable way. Everyone is pulling their weight. Everyone is looking out for each other's backs. We're watching each other's blind spots. And the communication has been solid, the dedication. And we're doing this all on our own dime, guys. Like no funding, this is just pure blood, sweat, and tears. And maybe it's arrogant, but I got to say, compared to other teams I've seen in this space, like, well fucking done, guys. Well done. This has been one of the most impressive 2-week sprints I've seen in a long time. So with that, unless somebody else wants to jump in. Oh, God, we can't. Hold on. We can't. Yeah. So there's two things. We definitely need audio, and we need to hear from the others and maybe touch on hardware if you want. But we need audio, and then whenever we close out, we need to close out with Dred's new Drac Rap. But
I'll play that at the end for sure.
Yeah, so let's take it over to Art because there is an entire audio element to this that's tied to the ILM system that gives us really cool audio. And we have a master at the helm who does 3D spatial audio engineering for us so that it's even more immersive. Brad?
Prepare for battle. First strike. You blocked that one. Charging special attack. Charging shield. That's gonna hurt. Burn them to the ground. Fatal blow.
So that is a playthrough of some of the audio that we've been developing for the game for our battling system. I have been mixing it into a Dolby Atmos sound. So again, for people with headphones, we can put it into a binaural input so it can give that as close to a feel of a surround headset. So again, immersion of the game. So the game's audio isn't, two-dimensional and flat. So again, further shantifying that experience. Because again, if something doesn't feel right or it doesn't slap you across the face, like again with a tail whip, I tried to come from side to side. I'll show you what that kind of looks like. And this.
Quick summary, I've set, obviously 30 plus years of software development experience. We did sprints before they were called sprints. We did agile before anyone knew what the hell agile was. My first AI and machine learning software was back when we called it an expert system. Back in the 90s, I was one of the OG .com douchebags, started one of the first network security companies in the world, grew that company to 300 and something employees while I was the founder and CEO, about 40 to 50 million in revenue. Back when 40 or 50 million in revenue for a startup in Silicon Valley actually fucking meant something, right? We were literally doing revenue. We raised a $35 million round at one point from Menlo Ventures. So anyway, point is I'm old. I've been doing this a while. And this is one of the single most impressive stand-ups I've been a part of for a very long time. You guys you're killing it. I can't believe what you're developing. I'm trying to understand how you're even building this. This is the kind of thing that I would expect millions and millions of dollars in startup capital behind. And so I don't know the full story of how the hell you even got here, but it's hard to have anything negative to say, to be honest with you. It's just positive vibes and a lot of really great work.